Guys, I, Aroz Sadia, welcomes you to my YouTube channel AS Classes. I hope all of you are doing well. If you like my videos, then please do like, share and subscribe my channel, and those who are new to my channel, please press the bell icon. So in today's lecture, we are going to start with history of class 6. If you have seen my previous videos that consist of NCERT of class 6, Hamara Rajasthan, after that geography, and now we are going to start off with history. I am going to cover the complete NCERT, which will be helpful to the students of class 6 of both CBSE and RBSE board, and to the people who are preparing for UPSC, RPSC exams or any state exams. So these NCERT would act as a base for their preparation. I am going to explain you line to line NCERT in detail. So today we are going to start with our topic of history, chapter 1 of class 6, named as what, where, how and when. When we talk about this topic, what, where, how and when. So what we are going to discuss in this chapter. But before starting off with this chapter, first we have to understand what is history. History is the study of the incidents or the events that has happened in the past. All the events that has happened in the past we are going to study in history. So history consists of one word within it, which is story. So we can say that history tells us about the story of events and incidents that has happened in the past. We are going to study about all those events and incidents in this subject named as history. History is a continuous systematic narrative of the past evidences. It is a systematic study. History is always written in chronological order. As we know that, we can see when we talk about history, when we have to study history, it is study in 3 parts, that is ancient history, medieval history and then modern history. So there is a chronology when we talk about history. Now history is generally divided into 3 periods. This history is divided into 3 periods based on their basic certain characteristics of each age. And these 3 periods are prehistory, proto-history and history. When we talk about prehistory, what is prehistory? It is the study of human culture prior to written records. It is the study of the period of the humans when there were no written records. When we talk about history now, there are written records about each and everything. But it is the study of the human period before there were no written records. And the history of this period is studied by archaeological evidences only. As there were no written records, so how will we be able to study about the history of the human culture? So for that purpose, we can only use archaeological evidences. These archaeological evidences consist of monuments, inscriptions, coins, artifacts, pots, everything comes under this archaeological evidences. And by using this archaeological evidences, we can study about the prehistory, how the people evolved, how the people live, what they wore, what they eat, by using this archaeological evidences. Through these archaeological evidences, we would come to know about what the people eat, what is their living style, what they wore, what is the cultural, political and economic situation prevalent during that period of time. All these things can be known through these archaeological evidences. Now this prehistory is further divided into 3 parts, that is Paleolithic age, Mesolithic age and Neolithic age. After this, we are going to start with proto-history. What is proto-history? It is a period that existed between prehistory and history, during which a culture or a civilization has yet not developed writings. The cultures were being flourishing, civilizations were flourishing, but they don't have writings. But other cultures have already noted its existence in own writings. Now, duration of this period is Sira 2500 BC to Sira 600 BC. When we read this date 600 BC, what does this BC means? This is before Christ. We are going to discuss it later on in this chapter only. Now history, historical period is the period whose information is available in written records. History, when we talk about history, it is the study of events of past and events. So they have the written records. Written records, when we talk about written records, it comes with literature. Literary sources. When we talk about prehistory, it can be only studied through archaeological source. But when we talk about history, it can also be studied through literary sources when the writings are present. Okay, writings means literary sources. I hope it is clear now. We are going to discuss this prehistory in more detail. These three periods, that is ages. Prehistory, it is divided into three ages, that is Paleolithic age, Mesolithic age and Neolithic age. When we talk about Paleolithic age, it is a hunter-gatherer society. What does a hunter-gatherer means? The person or the society which gather food, hunt animals, eat them, fulfill their basic needs and live. These are the hunter-gatherers. They were not civilized at all. They don't have much knowledge. They were using the tools made up of stones. They were unaware of most of the things but aware of the beneficial aspects of the plants which they gather to eat. Okay. Now, in this Paleolithic age, the society is a band society. What is a band society? A small community less than 100 people. A small community, a group of people live together, they reside together, they hunt, gather, eat food, fulfill their basic needs and move to some other place in the condition of a natural calamity such as drought or flood. Then this type of society is known as a band society. They don't have a permanent residence. Nomadism is when the people move from one place to another without any aim. This is known as nomadism. So this society is nomadic in nature. They move from one place to another as they were unaware what is in their surroundings. Now they use tools made up of stones. When we talk about Mesolithic age, it is a transition period from Pleistocene where man developed, evolved, to Holocene age. Tools, microliths. They are using tools made up of stones. Now they are using tools made up of stone, but more organized form of tools which are called as microliths. Now they started domestication of animals such as dog, cattle, goat and sheep. Crops, wheat and barley, grow them. And sedentary settlement. Here is nomadism. When people move from one place to another aimlessly, they were just moving from one place to another. Okay, but when they start residing at one place with the aim that they have to do, agriculture here, they have to grow crops such as wheat and barley. So they start residing at certain place. So there is a transition from nomadism to sedentary settlement. And when we talk about this Neolithic age, it is a transition from a hunting-gathering society to a food production. By this age, the people start producing food in larger quantity as they start storing them in stores or in grannies. They have surplus food. They were clear in their minds that what they want. They were not just roaming from here to there like hunter-gatherers. They have their vision and they were working on it and they were producing food now. And they grow cotton for the first time and occupation when they have the stability of food. The basic need, they were having their homes where they live and they were having food, which is most important things for the survival. So they start exploring new occupations such as musicians and dancers. That's all for our prehistory. In brief, I have explained you, but in detail we will study later on. That is what is Paleolithic age, Mesolithic age and Neolithic age. Our topic: what, where, how and when. So in this chapter, we are going to discuss about what we are going to study in history. We are going to study about the people, what they wore, how they live, and then when we talk about where they used to live, then when we talk about how they used to live, and when, so the period, the time that was existing during that time when the people were living. We are going to study all this in our chapter, what, where, how, and when. So when we talk about what can we know about the past? What can we know about the past? To know about the people, what we study in the past. To know about the people, what they eat, wore, and how they live. With this, we come to know about the lives of, when we talk about how the people used to live, then how they used to live, what they eat. So we come to know about the lives of the hunter-gatherers, as we have studied, the lives of the herders, priests, craftspersons, scientists, and merchants. All these peoples are the peoples about whom we are going to know when we study about history, when we study about our past. We are studying about what? In what we studied? People, what they wore, and what they eat. Now we are going to study about where they live, near which rivers. So where did they live? Where did the people live? Along the banks of the rivers for several 100,000 years. It is believed that whenever a civilization or a culture developed, they used to develop near the banks of the rivers, because near the river they can get an easy availability of water, they can hunt animals, everything could be easier for them. That's why any civilization which we study developed near the banks of the rivers. When we talk about the famous Indus Valley civilization, it also developed near a river named Indus. Now, earliest people who lived here were skilled gatherers. We know that skilled gatherers means they can gather their food. Now they know about the vast wealth of plants in their surroundings, forest, and collected roots, fruits, and forest products for their food. And they also hunt animals. As we know that hunter-gatherers, what does hunter-gatherers do? They hunt and collect, they hunt animals and they collect the food products which were present in their surroundings and which will be beneficial for them. So they just hunt and gather them and eat for their survival. But they were very well aware of their wealth, that how helpful or beneficial it would be for them. Now we are going to study about certain examples which were given in your NCERT. We are going to cover your complete NCERT line to line. So these are a few examples which were given in your NCERT, which are as follows. Suleiman and Kirthar Hills, they are present in Pakistan. These ranges. To the northwest, they are the areas where women and man first begin to grow crops. These are the ranges where the people, man and women, start growing crops for the first time, that are wheat and barley, around 8,000 years ago. When we talk about Suleiman and Kirthar Hills, what happened here? It is believed that the man and women for the first time around 8,000 years ago start cultivating crops. Okay. Now, when we talk about Garo Hills, to the northwest, and the Vindhyan in the central India, it is believed that rice was first grown here. It is important. When we talk about Suleiman and Kirthar, wheat and barley were cultivated, and when we talk about Garo Hills, rice was first grown. Now, Indus and its tributary. As I told you earlier, this Indus is the river near which the Indus Valley civilization flourished. Now, first society we excavated in the ancient city about 400-700 years ago. Some of the earliest cities flourished on the banks of these rivers. As I told you earlier also, any civilization or culture used to develop near the banks of the river so that there is an availability of water. The animals who come to drink water, they can hunt them and eat them. So for their better living, they used to reside near rivers. Now, fourth one is Ganga and Som. Ganga and Som. About 2500 years ago, cities developed on the banks of the rivers of Ganga and its tributary. 2500 years ago, the city started developing near the river Ganga and its tributary. area south of the Ganga was known as Magda. The area which was present at the south of the Ganga was known as Magda. Magda was presently in Bihar and it was the largest kingdom. I hope it is clear now. Where did they live? Obviously, the people used to live near the rivers so that there would be availability of water and food to them. That's why their civilization or the cultures established or flourished near rivers. I hope it is clear now. After discussing about where does people live, they live near the banks of the rivers. Now we are going to start with why did people move from one place to another? Why does people travel? The two main reasons behind the traveling of people is first in search of livelihood and second in case of a natural disaster. The man and the woman who were living during that period of time moved from one place to another in search of their livelihood in order to make their life more better. And the second reason is in case of natural disasters. When the natural disasters such as flood and drought occur, so forcefully they have to leave that place and move to the other safer place. When there is a drought, there is no availability of water, so how will they live? And in case of flood, there would be more water through which they have to move. Okay, so there are the two reasons why people travel: in search of livelihood and in case of natural disasters. Man and woman moved in search of livelihood as well as escape from the natural disasters like food and drought. Sometimes man marched in armies conquering other lands. People shared new ways of craving stones. They start craving stone, new ways, composing music and cooking food over several hundred of years. As I have told you that this composing of music and change of occupation from hunting, gathering, agriculture to that is musicians and dancers, that occurred in a Neolithic age because people start a sedentary settlement and they have more food, surplus food which they store in grannies. So they started shifting towards more occupations such as musicians and dancers. These movements of people enriched our cultural tradition. Obviously, as these people used to live in a band society, means a small group of people of 100, okay, nearly 100 people used to live together, so they have a certain culture and tradition. When they move from one place to another, they take their culture and tradition with them, and when they start living at that place, they flourish their culture more. So India is a diverse country which consists of many cultures and traditions. So that's why when the people move from one place to another, they flourish their culture and tradition over that place where they reside recently. Names of the land. The country in which we live is India and it is known by India and also known as Bharat. So now we are going to know about from where these two words India and Bharat comes from. So when we talk about India and Bharat, so India comes from a Indus word which means Sindhu in Sanskrit, and Iranian and Greeks comes from northwest about 2500 years ago. They were familiar with the word Indus and called Indus as Hindus and Indos, and they called the land to the east of the river Indus as India. They named the land which was present to the east of the river Indus as India. This is where this word India comes from. And when we talk about Bharat, it is used for the group of people who lived in the northwest and who were mentioned in the Rig Veda. Northwest and who were mentioned in Rig Veda, and later on this word Bharat is used for the country. I hope it is clear now from where does these two names India and Bharat comes from, and our country is known by these two names, India and Bharat. After studying about the people, what they wore, what they eat, why they travel, then near which rivers they used to reside, then what is the name of the country, that is India and Bharat. Now we have studied about the people, the life they wore, the hunter-gatherers, the food production society, everything we have studied. But from where does we come to know that all these things have happened in the past? From where we come to know that this type of people used to live in this society, then the band society was present during the Neolithic age, Paleolithic age. Okay, from where does we come to know that? For that, we required some sources, and these sources are of two types, that is archaeological source and literary source. To know about the history, we require some sources. And these sources are, first is archaeological source, the relics of the ancient time, which helps us to understand the context of the places and the incidents. And literary source, literature obviously plays an important role in knowing about the history. As we know that we have studied about the prehistory, proto-history and history. So in the prehistory, we don't have any written records. We use these archaeological evidences, archaeological sources, and these archaeological sources are many types. And then when we talk about literary sources from history, the writings were found through which we come to know about the which ruler ruled the kingdom, what were the political conditions, economic, social, religious conditions prevalent during that period of time. All these things can be known to us by using these two sources, which are archaeological sources and the literary sources. We are going to discuss these sources in detail. Theological sources. Now we have discussed they are the relics of the ancient time, which helps us to understand the context of the place and incident. Now there are many types of archaeological sources, which are inscriptions, monuments, coins and artifacts. As we have discussed that in the periods of history, that is prehistory, proto-history and history. In prehistory, we have studied that there were no written records found, and the study of that period can only be done through the archaeological evidences. And these archaeological evidences can be found in the form of inscriptions, monuments, coins and artifacts. But as of now, in your NCERT, the only archaeological evidences which is prescribed is inscription. So we are going to discuss this inscription in detail. What is inscriptions? Inscriptions, they are the writings on relatively harder surface such as stone or metals. The writings which were carved on the harder surface such as on the metals or on the wall or on the stones, they are called as inscriptions. Now, in form of public order by the king or the records of the king or queen who recorded them. Now, these inscriptions, they are the written records which were being carved on the harder surface such as stone or metal. But who order to write these inscriptions? The kings or the queens order to write the inscription. The inscription could be of their achievements, of their victory, anything. Okay, this can be done by the king and queen. They order, on their order the inscriptions were being written, or any religious priest. After that, there is one example given in your NCERT, that is Kandahar inscription. It is inscribed on the order of the ruler named Ashoka. Kandahar inscription is being inscribed on the order of the king named as Ashoka. This inscription was inscribed in two different scripts and languages. Now that one is Greek on the top and Aramaic below, which were used in that area. The script and the language of this Kandahar inscription inscribed on the order of King Ashoka, and it is inscribed in two language and script, that is Greek on the top. Greek on the top and Aramaic at the below, the language which was prevalent at that period of time. Now when we talk about script and language, we should be aware about what is script and what is language. Script, when we write anything, we use a script, and it consists of letters or symbols. The writing, when we used to write anything, it consists of a script. It consists of letters and symbols. And when we talk about language, when we read what is written or speak, we use a language. When we read, like the archaeological sources, when I read this is my language. Okay, and the writing is script. I hope it is clear now what is script. Script consists of letter and symbols, and script writing anything. For writing anything, we used a script. And when we read what is written, it is a language. Now this Decipherment. What is it? Decipherment. What is it? Decipherment, it is a discovery of the meaning of text written in ancient or observed languages or the script. Decipherment is something in which you can understand what is written on the inscription. You should study about the language and the script to understand what they are trying to say, what they want to say. So this is known as decipherment. I hope it is clear. Theological sources, there is also one term named as archaeologists. Who are archaeologists? Who are they? They study the remains of the buildings made up of stone and bricks, paintings and sculptures. Archaeologists are the people who used to study these archaeological evidences. That can be a monument or the remains of the buildings made up of stone and bricks, paintings and sculptures. They also explore and excavate to find out tools. They also used to study the tools, like various Harappan civilization tools were being found. They used to study them. Then weapons, pots, pans, ornaments, we have to study them. They study these. Archaeologists used to study these. They also took the bones of the animals, birds, fish to find what people eat. They also used carbon dating for finding out the time, which was how many years old that particular substance is. So they also took the bones of animals, birds, fish to find what the people eat during that period of time. So what does archaeologist means? Archaeologist is a person who used to study about the remains of the buildings which were made up of stone and bricks, paintings, sculptures. They also used to study about the archaeological evidences such as weapons, pots, pans, ornaments. All these are the archaeological evidences. They also took the bones of the animals, birds to find out what the people eat. So these are the terms which are important. Archaeologist. I hope it is clear now what is an archaeologist. We are done with what is archaeological sources, types of archaeological sources. We are done with inscription, and one term that was left, we have also done it, that is archaeologist. Now we are going to start with our next term, that is literary sources. Sources. Literary sources plays a very important role in understanding the history. What are the literary sources? They are the written records. The written records can be written in many languages such as Rajasthani, Sanskrit, Thematic, and modern historians also write the historical records. Now, when we talk about the historical sources, there is only one source which is mentioned in your NCERT, and as per the NCERT, we are only going to discuss this: manuscript. The word manuscript, it is a Latin word which means hands. Manuscript is a Latin word which means hands. They are the literary sources which helps us to know about the past. Manuscripts, what are manuscripts? They are the literary sources which helps us to know about the past. They were written on palm leaves and birch tree which grows in Himalayas. Manuscripts are written on the palm leaves of the birch tree which usually grows in Himalayas, whereas inscriptions, they were written on hard surfaces such as metal or stones. Now, although most of these have been destroyed with the passage of time, obviously when they are written on a palm tree, they are going to be destroyed, and many of the manuscripts have been destroyed and only few are present, and those manuscripts which are present in today's time are kept in monasteries. Now, available, that helps in understanding the past. These manuscripts are a literary source and helps us to understand about the past. And what does they tells us about? The subjects on which the manuscripts are being written are religious beliefs, religious practices, lives of the kings, medicines and science in forms of epics. They were written in form of epics, poems and plays, and they were generally written in Sanskrit, Prakrit and Tamil language. That's all for this literary source. It has only one source, that is manuscript is prescribed in your syllabus, so we have discussed it. Now, manuscript, it is a Latin word which literally means hands, and they were written on the palm leaves and birch tree which grows in Himalayas. Manuscripts and inscription, both of them are important, as one is an archaeological source and the another one is a literary source. Both of them tells us about the ancient history. Last one of the topic, that is when. So it deals with the time, duration, dates that were prevalent at that point of time. So you have seen the terms written as BC, AD, CE, BC. What are they? So all the dates before the birth of the Christ. Who is Christ? The God of Christians. Christians used to worship Jesus Christ. So all the dates before the birth of Jesus Christ counted backwards and usually have the letters BC or BCE. Before the birth of Christ, all the dates were recorded as BC, that is before Christ, and BCE, that is before Common Era. And AD is Anno Domini, that is after Christ. CE is a Common Era. Example, if we talk about today, that is AD 23. CE is used instead of AD. Now Common Era is used instead of use of AD, that is Anno Domini, and BCE, that is before Common Era, is used in place of before Common Era, that is BC. I hope it is clear now when we talk about the present day, that is 2000 AD or CE. AD and CE is Anno Domini and CE is Common Era. These things should be clear in your mind. In fact, a question can be asked that what is the full form of AD? So AD is Anno Domini. What is BC? Before Christ. BCE, before Common Era. CE, that is Common Era. You should be aware of all these things. And all the days before the birth of the Christ are regarded as counted backward and usually have the letters named as BC or BCE. I hope it is clear now all about dates. Now we are done with this chapter named as what, where, how and when. We have discussed all of this. Now we are going to start with its exercise. Exercise, match the following. I have already written the correct answer. When you see Narmada Valley, that is hunting and gathering, Magda. It is the first biggest kingdom. It is present in Bihar. Now Garo Hills, early agriculture started at Garo Hills. Then Indus and tributaries, the first cities developed there. Now Ganga Valley, cities about 2500 years ago. Now difference between manuscripts and inscription. It is very easy when you have to write a difference between a manuscript and an inscription. It is a literary source, it is an archaeological source. Now when they were manuscripts, they were written by hands on palm leaves. They were written on palm leaves or the specially prepared bark of the tree known as birch, which grows in Himalayas. And when we talk about these inscriptions, they are the writings engraved on the relatively hard surface such as stone or matters. In this inscription, we have studied about the Kandahar inscription, which was inscribed on the order of King Ashoka, which was written in two languages and script, that is Greek on the top and Aramaic at the bottom, which was the local language of that period. Okay, I hope it is clear. That's all for our exercise. Now we are done with this chapter named as what, where, how and when. In this chapter we have discussed about how the people live, what they eat, why they travel from one place to another, how the name of India and Bharat comes from, then what is the time, dates, everything we have discussed. From where does we know about the history, the sources to know history, that are archaeological sources and literary sources. I hope everything is clear in your mind. I tried to cover the entire NCERT chapter in this lecture so that you can understand it well. If you people really like my videos, then please do like, share and subscribe my channel. Thank you for watching.